Have you ever wondered why something that seems so harmless can end up controlling so much of your mind? That simple question opens a door most people are afraid to walk through. Porn isn't just a video on a screen. It's an experience engineered to capture your attention and keep it. When you watch it, your brain reacts the same way it would to any powerful drug. It floods your system with dopamine, the chemical messenger that shouts, "That felt good, do it again." Now, dopamine itself isn't bad. In fact, it's vital. It drives your ambition, your curiosity, your hunger for growth. It's what gets you out of bed to chase your goals or pushes you to learn something new. But when dopamine is released too easily and too often, like it is with porn, it starts to trick your brain. Your mind begins to associate that quick, effortless pleasure with satisfaction. You no longer need to earn your reward. You just click a button and get it instantly. Think about that for a second. Every time you hit play, you're not just watching something, you're training your brain. You're reinforcing a loop that says pleasure doesn't require patience, connection, or effort. And your brain, which loves efficiency, takes notes, starts prioritizing those shortcuts. That's why over time, regular activities like reading a book, having a deep conversation, or even experiencing real intimacy can feel less rewarding. The brain compares those slow, real moments to the instant surge of dopamine it gets from porn, and it chooses the easier path, the scary part. That choice starts to happen automatically. You might tell yourself, "I'll just watch a little," or "I can stop anytime," but your brain's reward system is already rewired to expect that spike. Just like someone hooked on caffeine or nicotine, you begin to crave that hit not because you want it, but because your brain now needs it to feel normal. And here's what most people don't realize. This kind of stimulation goes far beyond physical pleasure. It starts to affect your motivation, your energy levels, even your mood. You feel restless, bored, or numb when you're not watching. You chase novelty because the same content stops working. This is the hallmark of dopamine tolerance, the same process seen in drug and gambling addictions. But remember, this isn't about shame or moral judgment. It's about understanding the biology behind what's happening. Your brain is doing what it's wired to do, seeking reward and avoiding discomfort. The problem is that porn gives it a shortcut so powerful that it bypasses the systems designed to regulate balance. You get the high without the effort, the reward without the achievement. Over time, that imbalance begins to reshape how your brain defines pleasure, connection, and satisfaction. So when we say porn is rewiring your brain, we're not using a metaphor, it's literal. Neural pathways, the connections between brain cells, grow stronger the more you use them. Every click, every scroll, every watch strengthens the same circuits that crave instant pleasure. Meanwhile, the circuits that thrive on patience, focus, and real connection begin to weaken. It's a gradual shift, almost invisible, until one day you notice it's harder to concentrate, harder to feel excitement for the things that used to light you up. That's not weakness. That's neurochemistry. The good news is that awareness is the first step toward change. Once you understand what's happening, you can start to take control back, to retrain your brain, to seek real fulfillment instead of artificial highs. Because the moment you realize that this isn't about morality, but about mastery of your mind and your impulses, that's when true healing begins. Over time, your brain begins to adapt. Once felt exciting now feels dull, almost predictable. This is because your brain's reward system starts to desensitize. It needs more stimulation to release the same amount of dopamine. You find yourself searching for something new, something different, something more extreme. It's not because you're broken or messed up. It's because your brain has learned to chase novelty to keep that dopamine high alive. This is what scientists call the tolerance effect. The same mechanism that drives someone addicted to caffeine to need 2 cups instead of 1, or a gambler to raise the stakes just to feel the same rush. Porn works in the same way. The brain begins to treat it not as entertainment, but as a chemical fix. And once that happens, real life starts to lose its color. Conversations feel boring. Relationships feel heavy. Work feels like a chore. You start noticing that it takes more to feel good, and even small moments of joy. A smile from someone you care about, a beautiful view, a compliment, barely register. Your brain is still craving that spike of artificial reward, so everything else feels muted in comparison. This is why so many people who consume porn regularly report feeling tired, unmotivated, or emotionally flat. It's not laziness, it's chemistry. When your dopamine system is constantly overstimulated, it becomes less sensitive to everyday pleasure. Your brain's receptors, the little gates that respond to dopamine, start to downregulate, meaning they close off to protect themselves from overload. It's like listening to music at full volume for hours. Eventually, your ears go numb to the sound. And here's where it gets even trickier. Your brain starts to link pleasure with pixels, not people. It builds an association between arousal and the act of watching rather than connecting. So when you're with someone real, your mind may struggle to engage. You might find it harder to feel present, to stay emotionally tuned in, or even to experience physical attraction in a natural way. That's not a reflection of your worth. It's the result of a rewired system that's forgotten how to respond to real life. Authors and neuroscientists like Gary Wilson in Your Brain on Porn have explained this phenomenon in detail. The same reward loops that keep someone hooked on gambling or social media can be activated by digital pornography. The difference is porn combines visual novelty, emotional isolation, and instant reward, a perfect storm for dependency. But here's the powerful truth. What the brain learns, it can unlearn. Those neural pathways aren't permanent. Just as they were formed through repetition, they can be reshaped through new experiences. When you stop feeding the cycle, your brain begins to detox. It starts to rediscover what real satisfaction feels like: slower, deeper, more meaningful. The process isn't instant, but it's real. At first, you may feel restless or empty, like something's missing. That's your dopamine system recalibrating, learning to find balance again, and slowly colors return. Laughter feels genuine. Focus becomes easier. Connection feels exciting again. You start to experience life, not through a fog of overstimulation, but with clarity and presence. Because underneath the layers of habit and impulse, your brain was never broken. It was simply responding to the strongest signal it knew. And the moment you choose to turn that signal off, you give your mind the space to heal, to reawaken, and to remember what true pleasure, the kind rooted in life, love, and growth, actually feels like. And that's when the real damage begins. Your brain is constantly flooded with dopamine and novelty. It stops functioning the way it's meant to. The same system that should help you feel excitement, motivation, and joy now becomes dulled, overstimulated to the point of burnout. It's like pressing the gas pedal nonstop until the engine overheats. You may not see it right away, but inside, something begins to shift. You start to lose interest in the things that once made you feel alive. Hobbies, conversations, goals. They all start to feel flat, like background noise. You might still go through the motions. The spark isn't there. What used to bring joy now feels like effort. It's not that you suddenly stopped caring, it's that your brain's reward system has been hijacked. It's wired to expect intense stimulation, and when life doesn't match that level of excitement, it feels boring. This dullness isn't just emotional, it's neurological. When dopamine levels are pushed too high, your brain responds by reducing the number of dopamine receptors. In other words, it protects itself by becoming less sensitive. The result? You feel less pleasure from everyday life. That's why things like working on a project, talking with someone you love, or even watching a sunset can feel strangely empty. Your brain has been trained to crave the artificial high, not the natural one. And this imbalance doesn't stop there. When your reward system is overstimulated, other brain regions start to suffer, especially those involved in focus, self-control, and empathy. This is why many people caught in this cycle report feeling anxious, unfocused, or detached from others. It's not a coincidence. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that helps you make decisions and resist impulses, becomes weaker. Over time, you might notice it's harder to say no, harder to focus, harder to find meaning in the simple things. You might even start to feel a quiet kind of sadness, one that lingers without a clear reason. That's because dopamine doesn't work alone. It's tied to serotonin and other mood-regulating chemicals. When you push one system too far, the others fall out of balance. So even though porn promises pleasure, what it often delivers long-term is emotional fatigue, irritability, and even depression. Perhaps the most dangerous part of this rewiring isn't what it does to your pleasure. It's what it does to your motivation. When your brain learns that pleasure can be achieved without effort, it starts to forget the value of discipline, patience, and persistence. Why work hard for a reward when you can get one instantly? Why chase real intimacy when pixels are easier and safer? Slowly, your drive, that inner fire that pushes you to grow and achieve, begins to fade. That's why so many people today struggle to concentrate, to start projects, to finish tasks, to stay consistent with goals. It's not a lack of intelligence or ambition, it's dopamine fatigue. The constant overstimulation from porn and similar digital habits has trained the brain to expect high rewards for low effort. And when reality doesn't deliver, that motivation disappears. But here's something to remember. This isn't permanent. Your brain is always changing, always adapting. It can recover. It can rebuild sensitivity and restore balance. Once you begin to distance yourself from artificial stimulation, your dopamine system gradually resets. Your energy returns. Your focus sharpens. You begin to feel alive again, not from screens, from real experiences. Because your brain was never designed for constant novelty. It was designed for growth, challenge, and genuine human connection. And when you give it that, when you feed it with real life instead of artificial highs, it starts to heal in ways you can feel. You don't just get your focus back, you get yourself back. You start to notice something deeper. Intimacy feels different, sometimes even confusing. What should be a moment of connection suddenly feels like performance. That's one of the most profound ways porn rewires your brain. It doesn't just affect what excites you, it reshapes how you connect with others. Your brain learns to link pleasure with pixels, not people. Every time you watch porn, you're engaging with an illusion, a perfectly curated, edited, and exaggerated experience designed to trigger maximum stimulation without emotional depth. There's no vulnerability, no shared energy, no risk of rejection, just instant gratification on demand. Over time, your brain begins to associate intimacy with that predictable control. Real relationships, by contrast, feel uncertain and imperfect, and the brain, now conditioned for the easy route, resists that reality. This is why so many people report feeling emotionally disconnected, even in relationships. They may care about their partner deeply, but struggle to feel that spark. It's not that the love is gone, it's that the brain's wiring has been altered to respond to fantasy instead of authenticity. Porn creates unrealistic expectations of what intimacy should look like, sound like, feel like, and the real world can't compete with a perfectly staged illusion. Over time, this distortion begins to affect how you perceive others. People become objects of pleasure rather than beings to connect with. It's subtle but powerful. The human face, the voice, the touch, all become secondary to the visual hit your brain craves. You may start to notice you're less patient, less emotionally available, and less able to experience true connection without stimulation. That's not because you've lost empathy, it's because your brain has been trained to focus on visual novelty, not emotional presence. This phenomenon has been described in neuroscience and psychology alike. In books like The Porn Trap and Dopamine Nation, researchers explain how the brain's mirror neurons, the cells that help us feel empathy and emotional connection, become less active with repeated exposure to artificial stimulation. The more you consume it, the less responsive your empathy circuits become. That means you start feeling less attuned to others, less emotionally moved, and sometimes even less capable of love in the deep, patient sense. But let's be clear, this isn't irreversible. Your brain can reconnect with real intimacy once it's given a chance to detox from overstimulation. When you spend time with people without distraction, when you focus on genuine affection rather than performance, your brain slowly rebuilds those neural pathways that respond to empathy and connection. It's like learning to taste again after years of eating overly salty or sugary food. At first, real connection might feel strange, slower, subtler. But as your sensitivity returns, you start to rediscover what intimacy really feels like: the warmth of shared laughter, the comfort of vulnerability, the quiet joy of being truly seen. And that's something no video can replicate, because porn can simulate pleasure, but it can't give you closeness. It can trigger arousal, but not love. It can excite your senses, but it can't fulfill your soul. Real connection requires time, effort, and openness. The very qualities that porn slowly trains you to avoid. When you begin to break free from that conditioning, something powerful happens. You start craving not the artificial, but the authentic. You stop chasing stimulation and start seeking connection. And in that shift, your brain and your heart begin to heal together. And here's where the illusion of control comes in, the quiet lie that keeps millions trapped in the same cycle. I can stop whenever I want. It sounds harmless, logical, even. That's the trick. Addiction rarely announces itself as addiction. It whispers comfort. It convinces you that you're the one in charge. The truth is, when something repeatedly manipulates your brain's reward system, control starts to fade without you realizing it. You tell yourself it's just a habit, or I'll quit after this one time. But that one time becomes a loop. The brain, craving another hit of dopamine, begins to override logic. It's the same mechanism seen in gambling, smoking, or binge eating. The rational part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, loses strength while the primitive reward-seeking parts gain dominance. You're not weak for falling into this pattern. You're human. The brain is designed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. But the modern digital world has weaponized that instinct. Porn platforms use the same design strategies as social media: endless novelty, autoplay, instant feedback, all to keep you hooked just a little longer. That's not freedom. That's conditioning. Here's how it happens. You convince yourself that you're making a choice, but in reality, the choice is being shaped by what your brain has been trained to crave. You open your phone or laptop thinking, just a few minutes, but that few minutes turns into an hour. Then guilt hits, followed by shame, and ironically, those negative emotions push you right back into the same behavior, seeking relief through the very thing that caused the discomfort. It's a self-reinforcing loop, and the brain learns it quickly. You start to notice patterns. It's not even about arousal anymore. It's about escape, stress, boredom, loneliness, all become triggers. Your brain learns that porn equals relief, but that relief is short-lived, leaving you emptier each time. It's like drinking salt water. When you're thirsty, it feels like satisfaction for a moment, but it only deepens the thirst. And that's where the illusion becomes dangerous, because you start to confuse control with compulsion. You think you're choosing it, but often it's choosing you. The moment you try to stop, the restlessness kicks in. You feel irritated, distracted, unfocused. That's not a sign of moral weakness. That's your brain adjusting to dopamine withdrawal. The neural pathways built by repetition don't disappear overnight. They fight to survive, to keep getting that hit. But understanding this illusion is the turning point, because awareness is power. Once you see how your mind has been tricked, not by will, but by design, you begin to take back control. You start recognizing the cues, the moments when the craving isn't about desire, but about escape. And when you interrupt that loop, even once, your brain begins to relearn who's really in charge. Breaking free isn't about hating yourself or suppressing urges. It's about reclaiming your focus, your peace, your ability to choose consciously. It's about shifting from reaction to intention. When you can look at that voice that says, just once more, and answer, no, not this time, that's when you start to win. Because control isn't about never being tempted. It's about understanding the temptation so deeply that it loses its power over you. And there's another force that makes this cycle even harder to escape, one that quietly feeds the same reward pathways and keeps your brain addicted to instant gratification: social media. It may not seem connected to porn at first glance, but in the brain, the two speak the same chemical language. Dopamine, every scroll, every like, every new video, they all deliver tiny hits of reward. And just like porn, social media thrives on novelty. You're constantly shown something new, something shocking, something designed to make you react. The result, your brain becomes addicted not to the content itself, but to the anticipation of what's next. This constant chasing of stimulation slowly trains your mind to expect a never-ending stream of excitement, and when that excitement isn't there, boredom feels unbearable. This is where the connection between porn and social media becomes powerful and dangerous. Both are built on the same algorithmic architecture: reward, repeat, reward again. You scroll for a few seconds, you watch a clip, you get a surge of dopamine. Then you move on. Your brain starts associating digital experiences with pleasure and escape. Soon, both become coping mechanisms, one for loneliness, one for stress, both feeding the same craving for fast, effortless satisfaction. And the worst part, these platforms are designed to learn from you. They track what catches your eye, what makes you pause, what you rewatch, all to serve you more of it. It's behavioral engineering at its finest, and the product isn't the app or the video. The product is you, your attention, your focus, your time. So when you try to cut down on porn, but keep scrolling for hours, your brain doesn't truly heal. The wiring stays the same because the pattern, stimulus, reward, repeat, never stops. It's like trying to quit sugar by replacing candy with soda. You're still feeding the same addiction, just in a different form. That's why so many people find it so difficult to quit completely. They remove one source of dopamine but replace it with another. Endless scrolling, short videos, notifications. The cycle continues under a different disguise. And the symptoms remain the same: restlessness, low motivation, difficulty focusing, a constant itch for stimulation. Researchers have started to call this the dopamine economy, a world where your attention is the currency and companies compete to hijack your reward system. Both porn and social media have mastered this game. They don't just entertain you, they train you. They condition your brain to seek out quick rewards and avoid anything that feels slow, quiet, or effortful. The very qualities that define real life, real love, and real growth. But here's the hopeful truth. Once you understand this link, you can begin to break it. You can start to retrain your brain by deliberately choosing boredom over stimulation, focus over distraction, and presence over escape. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone or open another tab, you strengthen the circuits in your brain responsible for self-control and patience. The same circuits weaken by overstimulation, and slowly your mind begins to change. You start to crave peace instead of noise. Silence stops feeling uncomfortable. You notice beauty in small, real things again. Sunlight through the window, a deep breath, a conversation that doesn't need to be rushed. That's what happens when your dopamine system begins to heal. Because the truth is, freedom from porn isn't just about saying no to one habit. It's about rewiring your entire relationship with pleasure. And that starts by breaking free from all the artificial highs that keep your brain stuck in survival mode. The good news is the brain that got wired into addiction can also be rewired into freedom. The same neuroplasticity that once worked against you can now work for you. Science shows that your brain isn't fixed, it's adaptable, constantly reshaping itself in response to what you do, think, and focus on. That means recovery isn't just possible, it's biological. But let's be honest, rewiring your brain doesn't happen through willpower alone. It starts with strategy. The first step is to reset your dopamine system, to give your brain a chance to remember what balance feels like. That's what psychologists and neuroscientists call a dopamine detox. It doesn't mean cutting out all joy or excitement. It means pausing the artificial sources of stimulation, porn, excessive scrolling, gaming binges, constant notifications, and replacing them with experiences that create earned dopamine, not instant dopamine. When you take a break from high-intensity digital habits, your brain goes through withdrawal. You'll feel restless, bored, maybe even anxious. But that discomfort isn't failure, it's healing. It's your brain recalibrating its reward system, waking up from the constant buzz of overstimulation. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument that's been out of sync for too long. At first, the silence feels strange. But over time, it becomes soothing, even empowering. During this reset, it's crucial to engage in what I call real rewards. These are activities that naturally boost dopamine, but at a healthy pace, tied to effort, not escapism. Exercise is one of the best examples. When you work out, your brain releases dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins in harmony. You earn your reward through effort, and that retrains your brain to associate pleasure with progress. The same goes for learning a skill, reading, meditating, spending time outdoors, or even completing small daily goals. Each of these habits rebuilds your dopamine sensitivity step by step. Books like Atomic Habits and Dopamine Nation emphasize this truth: small, consistent actions reprogram your brain far more effectively than big, sporadic efforts. Every time you resist the urge to seek instant pleasure and choose growth instead, you strengthen the neural circuits of self-control and focus. That's neuroplasticity in action. The biology of willpower. You can also support your reset through mindful routines. Start your mornings without screens. Give your brain time to wake up naturally. Journal your triggers. Note what situations or emotions make you crave escape. This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Because when you can see your patterns, you can start to change them. And here's something most people overlook: sleep and diet play a major role in dopamine regulation. Chronic sleep deprivation and processed food both disrupt your brain's reward chemistry, making cravings stronger and focus weaker. By prioritizing rest and nutrition, you're not just helping your body, you're stabilizing the foundation of your mental resilience. This process takes time, but it's measurable. After a few weeks of cutting down on artificial stimulation, people often report sharper focus, deeper emotions, and an unexpected sense of calm. What's happening inside is real. Your dopamine receptors are becoming sensitive again. Your brain is learning to feel pleasure from life itself, and that's the beauty of it. You don't have to fight your biology, you just have to work with it. Your brain isn't your enemy, it's waiting for direction. Once you stop feeding it with noise and start feeding it with purpose, it begins to heal itself naturally. Step by step, the fog lifts, the cravings fade, and your motivation returns, not because you forced it, but because you allowed your mind to reset to its original balanced state. Once your brain begins to reset, something remarkable happens. You start to feel again. The same emotions and motivations that once seemed dull begin to return, but this time they feel richer, deeper, more genuine. That's the reward of healing. You don't just regain control, you regain connection. But recovery isn't just about removing the negative. It's about rebuilding the positive, rediscovering the simple things that make life meaningful. When your dopamine system starts working the way it should, your brain becomes more responsive to natural sources of joy. You start noticing small moments that used to pass by unnoticed. A laugh with a friend, the satisfaction of completing a task, the calm of an evening walk. These moments begin to light up your reward system again, naturally and sustainably. This is where mindful habits come in. Mindfulness doesn't just mean meditation, it means paying attention, being present in your experiences instead of escaping from them. When you focus deeply on what's in front of you, the taste of your food, the sound of the wind, the warmth of someone's hand, your brain starts releasing dopamine in a balanced way. It's gentle, powerful. You start to realize that peace can be stimulating too, that calm isn't emptiness, it's clarity. Connection is another key part of this healing process. Humans are wired for it. Genuine connection, emotional, physical, or even spiritual, releases oxytocin, a hormone that naturally balances dopamine. When you laugh, hug, share, or even listen deeply to someone, your brain experiences a kind of pleasure that doesn't burn out. It sustains you instead of draining you. That's why relationships built on presence and empathy feel grounding. They reintroduce your brain to the kind of pleasure it was designed for. Over time, this shift changes how you see yourself. You start to feel proud, not because you resisted temptation, but because you built something real. Your confidence grows naturally from the inside, the kind that doesn't depend on validation, likes, or artificial highs. You begin to trust yourself again, to believe in your ability to control your own choices. And that belief is the true foundation of freedom. Of course, there will be days when you slip, moments when the craving feels overwhelming. That's normal. It's part of rewiring. What matters isn't perfection, it's direction. Each time you pause, breathe, and choose awareness over impulse, you're teaching your brain a new pattern. Over time, those small choices compound into powerful change. In The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle wrote that awareness is the greatest agent for change. He wasn't talking about porn, but the wisdom applies perfectly. The moment you observe your craving instead of reacting to it, you've already weakened its grip. You've moved from unconscious habit to conscious control. And as that awareness deepens, your priorities start to shift. You no longer crave escape, you crave engagement. You start to enjoy working toward things that matter: your health, your goals, your relationships. Life stops feeling like something to numb and starts feeling like something to live. Because once your brain rediscovers balance, it doesn't just stop chasing artificial pleasure, it starts chasing purpose. You find joy not in the quick reward, but in the journey itself. You become focused, present, and grounded, not because you forced yourself to be, but because you've allowed your brain to heal and your spirit to reawaken. And that's where the final step comes in, turning recovery into a lifestyle. Breaking free isn't just about quitting something, it's about replacing it with a way of living that keeps your brain healthy, your heart engaged, and your mind clear. Because once your dopamine system stabilizes, the question becomes, how do you stay free? It starts with structure. The brain loves routine. A simple, steady daily rhythm creates stability for your emotions and focus. Wake up at the same time. Move your body. Expose yourself to natural light early in the day. It signals to your brain that it's time to be alert, boosting mood-regulating neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine in a balanced way. Then, fill your day with small victories. You don't need huge, dramatic goals. What your brain needs is progress. Something as simple as finishing a workout, learning a skill, or even making your bed gives you a natural hit of dopamine tied to accomplishment, not escape. Over time, these small wins rewire your brain to associate reward with effort, not indulgence. The next step is guarding your inputs. You can't expect a calm mind if you constantly feed it chaos. Be intentional about what you watch, read, and listen to. Your environment shapes your brain just as much as your habits do. Replace mindless scrolling with mindful learning. Listen to podcasts or read books that challenge and uplift you. The goal isn't to avoid stimulation, it's to choose better stimulation. Community also plays a powerful role. The opposite of addiction isn't just sobriety, it's connection. Surround yourself with people who encourage your growth. Find someone you can talk to honestly about your journey, whether it's a friend, a mentor, or a support group. Sharing your struggle reduces shame and builds accountability. The moment you realize you're not alone in this battle, the burden becomes lighter. And finally, practice gratitude. It might sound small, but gratitude literally changes your brain chemistry. When you focus on what's good, what's real, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin in harmony. It's the antidote to the hollow, temporary spikes that come from artificial pleasure. Gratitude anchors you in the present, reminding your mind that fulfillment doesn't come from escape. It comes from awareness. If you build these habits day by day, consistent sleep, physical movement, mindful living, genuine connection, gratitude, your brain begins to thrive again. Not in short bursts, but in a steady rhythm of clarity, motivation, and joy. You'll notice it in your energy, in your focus, in the way you show up for yourself and others. And the best part, the freedom becomes effortless. What once felt like a battle turns into a lifestyle. You no longer wake up thinking about what you're trying to avoid. You wake up excited about what you're building. Because breaking free isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the noise took over. It's about reclaiming your brain's natural rhythm, your heart's natural depth, and your life's natural purpose. So start today, not with guilt, but with awareness, not with shame, but with strength. Because every time you choose real over artificial, presence over escape, and purpose over impulse, you remind your brain and yourself that you were never meant to live numbed. You were meant to live awake.